Back in the gun shop at Iron Eagle Tactical. KB, what's burning? Tom Abbott's here, and we discussed in our last episode of being a responsible gun owner the various calibers of handgun ammunition. We're going to take it up a next level and do so on rifles. We've got quite a number, again, of different calibers, and it's worth explaining, folks, because you buy a firearm, you want to know as much about it as humanly possible, and so the more information we give you, that just kind of helps broaden your spectrum of knowledge when it comes to purchasing the right firearm and obviously the right ammunition to go with it. A point I'd like to make, if you look around our gun shop here, since we have live ammunition out and we're using it for demonstration purposes, you won't see any firearms around here.
Correct.
And that's a great idea. Yeah. So, Tom, let's talk a little bit about the caliber of rifle ammunition. And again, you've got a great display set up here for us.
Yep, KB, thanks for stopping back by and helping us educate the public on this. We're going to start back with the old favorite, the 22 long rifle. It's available in 50 round, 100 round, 500 round packages. For those that didn't watch our pistol segment, 0.22 inches in diameter, a little bit of powder in here. It's your basic starter round, whether you're being pistol or rifle. The Marlin Model 60 and the Ruger SR or Ruger 1022, millions and millions of those sold. Millions of 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, or that's the first rifle that they're ever going to shoot, minus a BB gun. Very readily available. Okay for squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, things like that. Again, not a personal protection round, but very good for learning the basics, trigger control, sights, breathing. So you want to use the 22 ammo for practice primarily. But since we're in a more of a self-defense or home defense type situation here, constitutional defense, if you want to call it that, we're going to move up with something a little bit more powder and a little bit more velocity. This is the infamous 5.56 or 223 potato, very, very similar. One is a NATO round, the other one is a civilian round, but for all intents and purposes, the 223 is 0.223 in diameter. This is 0.220 in diameter. Very, very similar in diameter, as you can see.
Right.
But the difference is this is a 40 grain bullet. This is a 55 grain bullet. You see a little bit more aerodynamics involved in this one because it has about 6 times the powder in this cartridge right here. So it's going to come out a lot hotter and faster. This is around 1,000 feet per second. This is around 3,000 feet per second. So it's going to travel the length of a football field in less than a second. That's the difference in a lot of these things. So these are used as our military rounds for the most part. The AR-15 shoots these.
The NATO reference?
Yep, the NATO reference is 5.56 millimeter, which is basically 0.223. It's a slightly longer round, but there's a lot of technicalities in that. But most of your rifles that you're going to buy in the AR-15 category, they make these for bolt action guns too. So it's not just the black rifle that's bad or the caliber that's bad. I've got a bolt action 223 and I've got an AR-15 that shoots in 223.
And again, I think it's worth showing the other end of those particular pieces of ammunition. With the 22, it doesn't have the dedicated firing point on the ammunition as the 223 or 5.56 does.
Correct. These are much more reliable because they have a dedicated primer. Their only sole purpose is whenever it's impacted by the firing pin, it goes poof, so they can set off all the powder in there to go bang. In this situation, this is a rim fire, so it's going to pinch this little rim that's on there, and it has a small explosive ring inside there that goes poof and then makes the powder go off. But again, as we talked about in the pistol caliber, I wouldn't trust this for my life. It's not as reliable as something that has the dedicated primer system on it. The 5.56 223 caliber, or this ammunition, comes in a couple of different varieties. This is the 62 grain, what they would call a green tip. It has a steel core inside of it as opposed to the lead core. Steel is going to be a little bit harder. It's not going to deflect, so it's going to penetrate a little bit more. Still has the copper jacket on the outside of it. This is our NATO round. This is what our military fires when they're in combat. They'll use these for target practice because they go through them by the millions. But for personal defense, self-defense, shooting at cars, through windows, things like that, you would want the steel core in the green tip. They do fit the popular AR-15 rifle, which when we get out to the range, we're going to go through several different varieties of the AR platform. One of those is one of my favorite rounds, and I have the most experience with, is a 300 Blackout. Now this is a 30 caliber bullet, 22 caliber bullet, 30 caliber bullet. Again, you can see the difference,
noticeable difference, sure,
in diameter, and not only the diameter, but the amount of volume in the projectile.
What's with the difference in the tips?
This is a ballistic tip. This is a hunting round because this is the hunting version or the rifle version of a hollow point.
Okay.
For those of you that followed in our pistol rounds when we talk about personal protection, this is the hunting version of that. Again, it has a hollow cavity in here that allows it to deflect, or I like to call it cauliflower, but it comes out so that when it goes through a deer or an individual, it's going to stop inside that individual or the animal. You don't want it to over penetrate. So this has the ability to put on the brakes, so to speak, inside something. So the ballistic tip, if it's just a hollow area inside there, the airflow at 3,000 feet per second is going to cause it to start to deflect. So they just put that ballistic tip on there. It disintegrates as soon as it hits something. One of the things you'll notice, this is a 55 to 62 grain bullet. This is a 150 grain bullet. So again, almost three times the weight. Another size again as far as diameter. So it's going to put a bigger wound channel in whatever it is that you're hitting, and it has a lot of impact power. So it's going to hurt when it hits you.
I guess so.
And you may even hear it when we shoot later on the range. It has a significant thump or impact to it whenever it hits the target.
Very good.
Why I like it in particular is it's made out of the same case as the 5.56 or 223.
Okay.
30 of these will fit in a 30 round magazine. So you have a lot of firepower on board whenever you're going with this round. But it's designed as a self-defense round. It's designed for close quarters combat. It's really designed to be suppressed. You can put a suppressor on the end of a shorter barrel, and they use it a lot in the military for close quarters combat. Great hog hunting round as we get into the wild hogs start to get more and more invasive in our area. Love the 300 Blackout. The next setup that also is part of our military arsenal is the 308. That is the same caliber of bullet that fits in the M60 machine gun. Only they're belt fed. Great hunting round. A lot of the hunters and farmers and stuff around here will use this for their deer rifle in a 308 caliber. There's a lot of bullets in between, but I'm going to focus on what is the most common, the most readily available. Slightly has a military twist to it. But the 308, you can see the difference. This bullet and that bullet are virtually the same. This is 147 grain, I believe. No, this is 125 grain. This is 147 grain. But it's the same diameter. You can see the same diameter. So that's basically taking this bullet, putting it in the smaller setup. So it's going to be a little bit slower. This has got a lot of power.
Yeah.
So the velocity with the bigger bullet is about the same between these two, only you have much more of an impact power here. The difference is you have to build a particular rifle, and typically will only hold anywhere from 10 to 20 rounds, where you can fit 30 rounds of this into your standard AR platform. The AR platform is the Corvette of the gun world. It's easily customizable. You can change barrels, lengths, a lot of accessories, and that's what keeps Iron Eagle Tactical in business, is we sell a lot of those accessories and design a lot of those guns. But the 308, been around since before World War II. Another one of my personal favorites, and I have a bolt action gun in this one, is the 8mm Mauser. Now this is a German caliber from World War II, pre-NATO. You You know, there's rules of combat anymore. Like the Geneva Convention outlawed 8mm diameter bullets. You have to have 7.62 or less, which this is 7.62.
0.62, right.
Yeah. So you put these two side by side. Again, a bigger caliber bullet, a little bit more room for powder, so it's going to go farther, faster, and do a little bit more damage. I like to shoot this one because it'll reach out there 400, 500, 600 yards in a bolt action gun. But just, that's, again, all of these are what we call center fire or dedicated primer rounds. They're pretty much going to go bang every time you pull the trigger.
Sometimes, though, if you have a misfire and you pull the bullet out to take a look at it, the pin might be off, and so that you know that there's maybe something in the way that the bullet is being loaded, or possibly you have an issue with where your firing pin is, and that's an easy way to check on something like that.
Firing pins are consumable.
Yeah.
They do wear out. And in an AR, I always carry a spare in my range bag. In my hunting rifles and stuff like that, bolt action guns, typically you're going to service those, and you're not going to put near the rounds through them as you would a semi-automatic.
We talk a lot about the different calibers of bullets. We talked about handguns, rifles. Let's talk just briefly on storage, how to store them safely, and what kind of conditions to store them in, because I would imagine certain conditions can do harm to ammunition.
Oh, absolutely. I like to, keep all the ammunition locked up as best I can. I also have dry storage containers. Let me grab one of those. This is something that is a dedicated ammo storage container. It does have a rubberized seal all the way around there, so it helps keep the moisture out. Moisture, big variations in hot or cold will affect ammo over time. Most of today's modern ammo is good for 25 to 30 years, really, if properly stored. You know, if you're left in a high humidity environment, that may have some effect on it, but typically they say keep your powder dry, and that's the most important thing.
Very, very true. Folks, again, hanging out here at the gun shop, Iron Eagle Tactical with Tom Abbott, part of our Responsible Gun Owner series, and we thank you for tuning in. What are we going to talk about next time?
We're going to take a look at the rifles that this ammunition will cycle through, the different types of rifles, bolt action, semi-automatic, single shot, stuff like that. So now we'll learn where this ammo goes and how it does its job.
And eventually, we'll get it out on the range. Thanks for tuning into What's Burning here on Lake TV.